Can you start? Yes. Good morning, distinguished members of Parliament, dear colleagues, dear participants. It's my pleasure to welcome you to session 4 of this conference. I am Edin Đelić, Deputy Speaker of Serbian Parliament, and before we begin session 4, I would like to give the floor for 1 minute to delegation that requested the floor yesterday but could not make their interventions. Let me start with Ghana, followed by Malawi.
You can give to France.
Ghana is here? No? Okay.
France is
Okay, and then France, followed by Iran.
France is here.
France is here and Chipta is here. France, Unite and Chipta are in the room.
Unite what? Oh, Unite.
They're here.
Ok. Bonjour à tous. En France, on compte à l'Assemblée nationale comme au Sénat seulement 36% de femmes élues. Cela représente entre 2017 et 2024 une baisse de...
In France, only 36 elected members of the National Assembly and Senate are women. This is a decrease of 2.7% in our National Assembly between 2017 and 2024. At the local level, the numbers of women represented is growing to the 40%. However, the National Assembly is headed by a woman speaker. She has been fighting with breast cancer, but she is also included in the parliamentary life. The schedule of the sessions are adapted to her treatment. Out of 22 members of the Bureau, 12 are women, which is over a half of the Bureau. We're also working towards improving accessibility for members of the Parliament, taking into consideration all the differences. For example, over the past years, the National Assembly and the Senate have redesigned their buildings and adapted them to members with disability. We have 2 members of the Parliament in wheelchairs. They have the office and a room for them. One MP is blind and he has a guide. Moreover, the buildings are adapted to their needs. We have also a kindergarten, and men and women who are new parents, they also have adapted working hours at the local level. We have a woman with disability as one of the councillors. However, people with disability are not well represented. The law, the French law, imposes that at least 6% of the employees need to be people with disabilities. However, in practice, there are below 1% of them, especially when it comes to women. However, France is dedicated to tackling this issue. Thank you, France.
Okay. Turkpa, is it there? You have 1 minute as well.
Mr. President, may I? Yes. Okay. So, dear participants, good morning. We have been asked to give the floor to delegations who requested the floor yesterday but could not take it. None of these delegations is present now, which means that with your approval, we will move on and start with session 4. We thank you very much for your understanding. We did our best. However, there will be other opportunities for speaking at the end of this session and in the following ones for those who could not speak yet. So, without further ado, Mr. President.
Thank you, Sena. Okay, now we begin our work with a topic that is urgent for politicians in general and for women in politics in particular. Political life is increasingly taking place online. Social media and digital platforms can help leaders connect with citizens, but the online space is also used to attack and intimidate politicians. And we all know that women in politics are particularly targeted by gender-based violence online. Online violence, disinformation, sexualized attacks, deep fakes are used everywhere. They endanger women and are used as tactics to silence them. They discourage new cohorts of women from entering politics. They also undermine public trust in women's leadership. This session will focus on how we can challenge these attacks and stereotypes. We will also look at how parliaments, governments, platforms, civil society and international partners can work together to support women's political voice online. Dear colleagues, before we begin, allow me to recall that the IPU is committed to ensuring that this conference is inclusive, respectful and safe for everyone. The IPU anti-harassment policy, including sexual harassment, applies to this conference. It applies to all participants and to all persons involved in the event. To begin, it's my pleasure to invite our colleague and friend, Ms. Claudia Roth, Member of Parliament from Germany and former Minister of State and Federal Commissioner for Culture and the Media, to deliver the keynote address to this session. Ms. Roth, we are honored to hear from you. You have the floor.
Thank you. I don't know to whom it belongs, not to me. Morning, everybody. Good morning, dear chair. Good morning, dear colleagues. Good morning, dear friends. I have been in politics for a long time, long enough to know what it means to be a woman who dares to speak, who dares to lead, who refuses to stay in a place of passivity sexist men want to assign to her. I remember shoe boxes, yes, shoe boxes, sent to my parliamentary office filled with feces, sent anonymously. I thought I knew what hatred looked like. Then came the rise of the far right, and the attacks grew more aggressive, more coordinated, more vicious. And then came social media. And what had been anonymous became public, became permanent. Today the messages often come with full names attached: professors, doctors, politicians, men with titles and positions, writing their sexualized, violent fantasies about me and my female, often young colleagues, openly because they can, because the platforms let them. I tell you this not only because it is my long story. I tell you this because I know it is yours too, in different forms with different layers. We are witnessing the rise of masculinists who want to reclaim what was never theirs in the first place, who have decided that the progress women have made over decades must be reversed, that we must be pushed back into traditional roles, that the public sphere belongs to them, not to us. This is not a coincidence. It is a backlash against everything we have fought for, against every inch of ground we have taken. And it has a target, us, women in politics, because our presence, our mere presence, is a provocation to those who believe public power is a male birthright. Technology has not invented misogyny. It has translated it into new weapons and weaponized it at scale. A sexualized deepfake is the same hatred that has always been directed at women in public life, delivered with new tools, a fabricated image that attacks the body, destroys the reputation and circulates without end. It is both a sexual assault and a lie at the same time. Think of Colleen Fernandez, a well-known German actress who for years found fabricated sexualized images of herself circulating across the internet, images she never made, never consented to, and could not stop only to find out her husband had been her perpetrator. Think of Annalena Baerbock, the President of the United Nations General Assembly, who faced vicious online degradation when she was Germany's foreign minister. Think of women in politics, women in the public eye, women everywhere around the world. A deep fake degrades and delegitimizes in a single blow. And the algorithms amplify it, reward it, and punish nothing. Dear colleagues, the violence does not fall on all of us equally. The women who face the most vicious, most compounding attacks are those already most marginalized in our society. Women of color, queer women, women with disabilities, women from the global south, targeted not only as women, but as black women, as migrant women, refugee women, as women whose very identity is treated as a provocation. Feminist solidarity must center their experience, not treat it as a footnote. Whoever we are, wherever we come from, the goal of this violence is the same: to silence us, to make us withdraw, to frighten us away from public life. And I will not pretend otherwise. It works. I know women who left politics because they feared for their families, for their children. That must not stand. Around the world, women are fighting back, and we have much to learn from them. From the Ni Una Menos movement in Latin America, which took millions to the streets. From Mexico's Ley Olimpia, born from one woman's refusal to accept digital sexual violence, now inspiring legislation across the region. And just weeks ago, the European Union agreed to ban AI applications used to create sexualized deepfakes. The world is moving because women are pushing it. But my dear colleagues and friends, there are still catastrophic legal gaps. For example, Germany. In Germany, creating deepfake pornography is not even consistently a criminal offense. Victims are left without recourse, without protection, often without even being believed. We Greens, especially my colleague Lena Gumnior, he's already in the German delegation, have put forward concrete legislation to criminalize sexualized deepfakes, to establish a Digital Violence Protection Act, to regulate platforms, to fully implement the Istanbul Convention, and to introduce femicide as a stand-alone criminal offense. Because naming matters, law shapes reality. And let me be direct. These laws protect every woman in this room, every woman whose voice is targeted precisely because it is a political voice. Women in politics are not collateral damage. We are the primary target. Legislation against digital violence is a matter of democratic integrity. And parliaments themselves must become safer spaces with cross-party mentoring, with binding sanctions, and with structural support. And the numbers confirm what we already know. 37% of parliamentarians worldwide are women. In Germany, only 30%, falling. The hostility women in politics face is not a side effect of underrepresentation, it is one of its causes. Dear colleagues, I refuse to end on a note of despair because the women in this room and the millions they represent have refused to be silenced. The women taking to the streets, building movements, speaking out when every instinct says to stay quiet, they give me strength and they give me hope. Our anger is legitimate, our presence is non-negotiable, and the right to participate in political life, free from fear, free from violence, free from the digital weaponry deployed to drive us out, is not a privilege. It is a fundamental human right. Let us leave Belgrade with a commitment to protect every woman in the private sphere as much as in public life. The hatred that tried to silence us built this movement instead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roth, for your important remarks and for opening our reflections this morning. We will now move to the panel. I'm pleased to welcome our distinguished panelists, Ms. Tatiana Macura, Minister in charge of Gender Equality, Prevention of Violence Against Women, and Economic and Political Empowerment of Women of the Republic of Serbia. Ms. Hamda Hassan Suleiti, Deputy Speaker of the Shura Council of Qatar and member of the Executive Committee of the IPU. Ms. Maria del Carmen Alva Prieto, Member of Parliament from Peru and member of the Executive Committee of the IPU. Ambassador Marcel Peško, head of the OSCE mission to Serbia. And Ms. Lucina Dimeko, founder of the organization She Persisted. We are grateful to all of you for being with us. I will now invite each panelist to speak in turn. Minister Macura, I'm pleased to give you the floor.
Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of the Republic of Serbia, Mr. Jelek, distinguished representatives of the Inter-Parliamentary Union, Your Excellencies, dear colleagues. First of all, welcome to Serbia. I would like to thank the Inter-Parliamentary Union and the Speaker of the National Assembly, Mrs. Ana Brnabić, for organizing this important event, as well as for the trust placed in Serbia to once again, for the second time in just 7 years, host parliamentarians from different parts of the world. For us, this is a confirmation that Serbia is recognized as a place of dialogue on important global issues and as a reliable partner in preserving the international legal order. It is particularly significant that we are gathering once again in the city where in 2019 the Belgrade Declaration was adopted, a declaration focused on strengthening international law, regional cooperation, and building alliances among states and societies. The topic of today's first panel has rightfully attracted the attention of both the global and Serbian public in recent years, as the use of digital technologies and artificial intelligence continues to expand rapidly. Despite the stable and continuous decline in the number of women victims of violence in Serbia over the past 15 years, it is evident that certain forms of violence have dramatically changed and become more sophisticated, more deceptive, and more visible since the adoption of the Belgrade Declaration. First and foremost, I am referring to violence taking place in the digital space. The digital sphere has become a place where we are often confronted with organized campaigns targeting women, hate speech, threats, manipulated photographs and video content, as well as the spread of disinformation aimed at discrediting women in public life. Although online violence is a problem affecting society as a whole, the fact remains that it disproportionately and particularly painfully affects women. And when we speak about women in politics, the situation becomes even more serious. Women politicians are often attacked not because of their decisions or political views, but because of their gender, appearance, private lives, and deeply rooted stereotypes surrounding women's participation in politics. Stereotypes that have existed ever since women fought for their right to engage in political life. A particularly serious issue is the space that the development of artificial intelligence has opened for abuse, especially through sophisticated forms of digital harassment and discreditation, including so-called deepfake content. What once required significant infrastructure to spread false information can now be created within minutes. One no longer needs to be a technology expert to produce content capable of compromising a woman, both professionally and personally, based entirely on a deception. In this context, violence against women in politics goes far beyond the issue of safety in the digital sphere. It directly affects every woman's freedom to engage politically in a democratic society. If we fail to respond to the growing trend of digital violence, we risk becoming societies in which women remain silent out of fear of public shaming, threats, or humiliation online, thereby directly creating societies with less democracy, less freedom, and less gender equality. That is why I believe the first step must be greater verbalization of these problems. We must openly speak about the violence women experience in digital space. We must not relativize it. We must not dismiss it as the price of a public life or the nature of our profession. It is equally important that male colleagues, political parties, parliaments, and institutions stand in clear and unequal solidarity with women exposed to violence. What we need is a comprehensive and modern political alliance among all political actors, regardless of gender, in order to make progress in an area that concerns all of us who are part of a political ecosystem where there are many predators and even more victims. Alliances among women in politics, among colleagues, among institutions, civil society, media, and international organizations are of essential importance if we are to keep pace with the many forms of abuse enabled by modern technology. This is why I precisely do believe that women's parliamentary networks at all levels matter so much, because they represent spaces of support, exchanges of experience, and collective protection for women participating in political life. They are not easy to organize, that is true, but they are absolutely necessary. When one woman is attacked because of her political view, the only effective response is a collective message that violence is not acceptable form of communications in our societies, and that will not be tolerated as a legitimate political argument. On the contrary, today, more than ever before, we have a democratic, liberal, and moral obligation to do everything in our power to build a political culture in which women will not be considered brave because they endure violence well, but because they are free to participate equally in political life and express their views without compromise. For that reason, the government of the Republic of Serbia remains committed to developing a culture of dialogue and clear condemnation of violent behavior, no matter how challenging or at times impossible that may seem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. Deputy Speaker Al-Soleiti, I'm now pleased to give you the floor.
السلام عليكم. Good morning. صباح الخير. سأتحدث باللغة العربية. I will speak in Arabic.
Honorable President, Honorable Chair, Mr. Jarlik, dear guests, dear friends, thank you for your hospitality. I would like to thank the government of the Republic of Serbia and the National Assembly for inviting us to this important conference. Today we are speaking about the advancement of technology, about the advancement of modern ways of life, about the modern tools, technological tools that help us in everyday life. But we're also speaking about digital world we live in. We are witnessing as well that there is a comprehensive development of society as a whole. However, regardless of all those technological advances, we are also witnessing violence that is happening on social networks, and the victims are women. Women are victims of sexistic attacks, and by men very often. They are their colleagues, unfortunately, or their bosses even. It is all affecting the role of a woman in every society, because if a woman decides and dares to enter politics, is going through a violence, is experiencing violence, which is very often very difficult to resist to fight against. And unfortunately, very often, women are giving up their political activity. Therefore, we have to work on emancipation of women and raising awareness, to raise the awareness on how to support women in fighting digital violence and general violence on the web. We have to encourage young women to fight electronic harassment at the very beginning of their political life, when they decide what they're going to work on or which profession they're going to take. Also, they have to receive our support. Therefore, countries have to use their mechanisms, their tools and institutions to improve the situation, to improve the environment, to decrease the violence against women and young women, to encourage them to take part in a political and public life, to be equal parts of our society. Our chair, Sheikh Mohammed, supported this initiative, and he supported women, young girls, through various institutional tools, and he supported the adoption of many laws which are benefiting women in general and are decreasing the violence against women through modern technology. A lot has been done in Qatar to adopt laws and bylaws which will improve the position of women, which will encourage them to take part in the political life of our country, that we need a comprehensive overwhelming support to encourage them to take equal position as men, and we have a long-standing project until 2030 that refers to women and mothers, to women who are active in business, and that has to be equal, treated equally with their colleagues and partners. In that sense, we have adopted a number of laws and bylaws which will provide for many changes, many positive implementation of many positive ideas until 2030. In order to, if a woman wants to be a good mother, good friend, a good wife, and at the same time an equal colleague at work, a woman that is professional, that is active in political life, a woman that is educated, that can go to university, that is emancipated, modern, that is free. This is our aim. This is our goal, starting from 2025, when we adopted first laws in this field, and in the coming 5 years, I think we will achieve a lot. Through the institutional framework and by implementing reforms in political and public life of our country, we are facing many challenges and many risks, and we are aware of those risks, but at the same time we know that we have a major task in front of us. It is a very important task. We want to protect women and we want to protect the family. We want to fight the violence against women. We want to eradicate it, and we want to improve the conditions, working conditions for women, and improve their livelihoods. Despite the positive aspects of digital development, we are aware of the negative sides of it, especially to women. And I fully agree what my dear colleague Claudia Roth said in the previous speech. We should not be silent. We should raise our voices. We should fight together, because only if we fight together and if we are solid with one another, we can contribute. If we demonstrate solidarity to one another, we can make this a common fight and improve the position of women in general. This plan demands participation of all actors of our society, political, cultural, social actors, media should be involved. We have to use the positive experiences and to gain a positive result from the draw from experiences from other countries, positive experiences, so we can be successful in achieving our goals that we mentioned and that we in our country, Qatar, have set as our goal. Thank you very much.
Madam Deputy Speaker. Ms. Salva Prieto, the floor is now yours.
Honorable Presidente, colegas parlamentarios, invitados en general. Es un honor participar.
Distinguished speakers, deputy speakers, and members of parliament, it is really a great honor to participate in this international conference on the topic that is one of the greatest challenges for the democracies. The social networks have enabled a high participation of the citizens and access to information, but they have opened the space where historical prejudice against women can find ways to be promoted and to be online. We have to fight against this directly. I, as a representative of Peru, during my mandate, have faced a very complex moment in my country because there was a conflict between the Congress and the executive branch of the power. In this context, attacks were not related to ideas. It was not a debate on ideas. It was often about my looks, my gestures, and my physical appearance. Therefore, I remind you, and I remember that at the beginning of my term of office, they started mocking about my name, my surname. They tried to they deformed my name so as it meant as a woman that does not behave appropriately or is impertinent and so on. But this was actually, it was necessary for me to face it, to overcome this challenge, and I had to show that not only men can be leaders, but that women can be better leaders sometimes. And if a woman is decisive, then she will be perceived as arrogant and as a person with the lack of empathy. And I was also exposed to the campaign of caricatures. It was on social media, and you know, there were many photos and drawings that were circulated, and they referred to my physical appearance, age, physical features. It wasn't about my political positions. There were dozens of caricatures where I was, you know, presented as a person with an exaggerated gesticulation. You know, those pictures were deterring. They had a deterring purpose, and they changed my physical appearance in those drawings. They put various clothes on me in those drawings in order to try to affiliate me with various groups of people. The second incident was during the vote in the parliament, and as it is the case in every parliament in the world, I was talking to my female colleague about the forthcoming voting. After that dialogue I had was presented as a form of harassment. The very next day, there were caricatures of my face where I was presented as an aggressive person, as a snake, whereas my colleague was presented as an intimidated victim. But it had nothing to do with the reality. Therefore, social networks were disseminating these drawings, and after every interview or every public performance, out of context, they made caricatures that were boiling down to the personal attacks, and it wasn't about you know, my ideas or positions, but about my age and physical appearance. With the improvement of technology, the manipulation became more sophisticated, including the content generated by AI. For example, they published fake news and saying that I had spent several months at home, not going to work because I had had a car accident. Of course, it wasn't the truth. and they called me names, they called me fascist and racist, in order, trying to deter people from me, trying to make people not like me. And what was concerning was that there was a video generated by AI where they used my voice, my image, and presented the ideas that I would never present. And they presented me as aggressive against other people and my state. And elimination of those contents was really difficult. You know, if I would remove them from one platform, it would appear on another platform. And such attacks are always they always come from anonymous people, and they are posted anonymously, which makes actually women give up on entering politics, or it makes them withdraw from the politics. Many of my friends told me, "What are you doing in the politics? You're under attack, both you and your family. Why are you still there?" So we in Peru are trying to enhance the participation of women. We do have the law on parity adopted in 2020. Currently, Congress has 40% of women MPs in the current term of office. I also have to mention the law on the use of AI that sanctions this generation of this kind of harmful content. However, it still happens. This is why we need international cooperation and efficient mechanisms that will prevent digital violence. We need to fight against the narrative that prevent participation of women in public life, and we have to enhance and promote education. We have to promote the culture of respect, because it's necessary for every democracy, and every democracy requires dialogue or discussions, and not to let dialogue turn into humiliation. While I was listening to Ms. Roth, I realized that what we need is to raise our voices, to be solidar. All of those who attack us women in politics, we cannot just stand still and pretend as nothing's happening. I used to tell myself I have to grow stronger in order to defend myself from all the attacks, to be responsible in the politics, but we cannot speak in this manner. Ambassador Peszko?
Good morning, Madam Minister, Mr. Chair, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, dear parliamentarians. I thank you for the opportunity also to present the perspective of the Organization for Security and Cooperation, which has a mission here in Serbia, and we are very much involved in supporting Serbia and strengthening its capacity to support gender mainstreaming, to support women parliamentarians and their role, very important role in the societies and politics. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity also to say a few words here. I would like to stress, first of all, that violence against women in politics, including the online violence, disinformation, misogynistic narratives, and gender-based attacks, remains one of the most significant barriers to women's full, equal, and meaningful participation in political and public life. And this was already mentioned with my predecessors who spoke about that with the concrete examples. So I think it's the global responsibility to address this issue, and we should be united on this, and we should use our expertise, our experience, our power of also the international organizations to address these issues in full. And as it was said, such violence differs from political criticism or political contestation or a normal political competition. It's gendered, often sexualized, and specifically targets women because they are women. Its purpose is frequently not only to silence individual voices, but also to discourage other women from entering public life. When women are attacked, intimidated, or systematically discredited online, democracy itself is weakened. Political pluralism suffers, public debate becomes less inclusive, and citizens lose access to diverse perspectives in decision-making. While this phenomenon remains under-researched and under-reported globally, available evidence demonstrates that it is also a serious challenge, not almost in all countries, including the Western countries, including countries here in Western Balkans, and Serbia is no exception. For this, I would like to stress that Serbia has made important progress in increasing women's representation on political life. Today, women hold approximately 38% of parliamentary seats here in the National Assembly. It's chaired by women speakers, the majority of deputy speakers are women, and women also occupy a growing number of other leadership positions in the National Assembly. However, numbers alone do not tell the full story. Despite these achievements, political life continues to be shaped by persistent stereotypes and deeply rooted gender norms. Women politicians are frequently portrayed through sexist or stereotypical narratives in media reporting. Women are still commonly associated with policy areas traditionally perceived as female, such as culture, family, health, education, or social affairs, while remaining underrepresented in fields such as finance, security, defense, or regional affairs. These stereotypes are increasingly amplified through digital platforms and social media. Research supported by the OSCE mission has shown that women politicians in Serbia, but not only in here, of course, are most frequently exposed to psychological abuse, harassment, degrading language, misogynistic labeling, and other forms of non-psychical violence. During in-depth interviews with most prominent female politicians, many reported that such incidents have increased in the recent years, particularly as women have become more visible and influential in political decision-making. This is why violence against women in politics cannot be accepted as the price women pay for participating in democracy. Addressing this challenge requires a strong and coordinated institutional response. For instance, and our research has proved that, we could talk about the dedicated code of conduct, specifically addressing gender-based violence and harassment in political life in digital space. Accordingly, parliaments have a unique responsibility as the central democratic and representative institutions in our societies. They should lead by example in promoting respectful political discourse, challenging harmful stereotypes, and building cross-party consensus on the protection of women in politics. The OSCE mission here in Serbia remains committed to supporting these efforts. One of our current priorities in supporting the National Assembly is developing its first ever gender action plan envisaged for adoption in 2026. This process is followed by our ODIHR's gender audit conducted with mission support and presented in 2025. We strongly advocate for an inclusive process involving parliamentary leadership, parliamentary groups, committees, the Secretariat, and parliamentary services because sustainable progress requires ownership across the entire institution and cross-political spectrum. The future Gender Action Plan will provide a practical framework for strengthening gender-sensitive procedures, accountability mechanisms, and institutional responses to discrimination and gender-based violence. Equally important is ensuring that women politicians themselves have a platform for solidarity and collective action. For that reason, here in Serbia, the mission has supported the Women's Parliamentary Network since more than 10 years, a unique cross-party forum bringing together women parliamentarians around shared priorities. Hostile narratives against women in politics are most visible and most damaging during periods of political polarization and social tensions. Yet, these are precisely the moments when institutional safeguards, political leadership, and cross-party solidarity are needed the most. Protected women's participation in politics is not only a gender equality issue. It is an issue of pluralistic and representative political system. It is an issue of democratic imperative. And therefore, it's great that we are discussing it today, and we should come with a very strong recommendation for addressing this phenomenon in the future. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Ms. Dimeko, you have the floor.
Now the next speaker is Lucina Dimeko.
I've talked to hundreds of women politicians, many of them women parliamentarians like you, of the online threats that they are receiving every day. I won't get into the details because you all know them very well, even much better than me. But what I'm here to tell you is that the evidence is mounting, that what we are seeing happening online today is not a reflection of misogyny in society, is not a reflection of gender-based violence in general. It is a political strategy. Women are being attacked, particularly when their voices matter most, like during moments of political transition and authoritarian threats. This isn't about misogyny per se, but the weaponizing of misogyny, sexism, bias, and hate for political gain. And of course, many of you mentioned these already. Artificial intelligence is making things worse by making it easier and cheaper than ever to attack women in politics with new tools. What used to require real resources and coordination now only demands a motive and an internet connection. And of course, the platforms that enable all of this continue to operate with near total impunity and becoming ever bolder as a result, with women's rights and even children's rights being sacrificed in the name of profit. Let's remember that last year, in December, between December and January, in just 11 days, the AI assistant Grok was estimated to have generated about 3 million sexualized images, including 23,000 of children, the vast majority girls, stripped naked online. We can't continue to let this happen. And it's not for women's sake alone. While women are the first target, what these malign actors are going after is democracy itself, undermining social cohesion and challenging democratic values and human rights. This isn't a women's issue. This is a security issue. Today, the infrastructure of elections and public discourse in your countries is being shaped by foreign-owned platforms that do not adhere to their own terms of service and do not internalize the social cost of their products. It does not have to be this way. There are solutions that can improve things, and they largely depend on women parliamentarians like you to be realized. I'll give 4. Number 1, regulation with teeth. Do not be fooled. Beware of those selling you AI tools and smart apps under the banner of AI for good. These tools will not fix the problem. This is not a technological problem, but a political one, and requires political will and courage to be fixed. Understand that reclaiming your sovereignty requires holding digital platforms to account and retain the practical ability to protect the conditions of citizenship in your own territory. This isn't about policing speech. Regulation must change the incentive structure that make hate, sexism, and the undermining of social cohesion profitable. There are promising legal frameworks. Just to mention one, the European Union Digital Services Act requires very large online platforms to assess systemic risks driven by their products and demand that they take steps to mitigate them. This goes way beyond content moderation. The legal basis exists and they must be enforced. Number 2 solution, reclaim masculinity. Understand that men are not the problem. Technological oligarchs and their products are the problem. Most often, young men don't go online to seek for hate and violence. They go online to seek for companionship, advice, and belonging. And once there, to recommender systems that draw them into dangerous ecosystems of hate and misogyny, they become radicalized. Online misogyny serves as a pathway to democratic erosion. We must build coalitions that include men, and in particular young men, in the defense of gender equality as an act of collective strength, not as allyship or guilt. Number 3, serious investments. Facts alone do not counter feelings. Fact-checking is not enough. Democratic governments must invest in countermeasure efforts by building more effective positive narratives and online engagement strategies. They must build emergency infrastructures and rapid response networks for women leaders, journalists, and civic actors facing targeted attacks. And those structures must go on beyond election cycles. We cannot keep leaving the effort and the burden of responding to online attacks on individual women themselves. And fourth, and this is particularly relevant for this room, these platforms are global. These attacks are global. We need a global response. Cross-border solidarity is key. Institutions like the IPU have a crucial role to play in promoting cross-national peer support and creating shared evidence and collective parliamentary pressure on platforms. Democracy, peace, and economic stability cannot exist without women's rights and leadership. Women leaders are attacked because they are strong, and their collective action can represent the solution to this global crisis.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dimeko. Distinguished colleagues, we will now continue with the sharing of views, experiences, and good practices by participants. Please focus on how online stereotypes, violence, or disinformation affects women in politics. Please also share what measures have been taken or could be taken to address these challenges. To allow as many participants as possible to speak, I kindly ask you to keep your intervention brief and not exceed 2 minutes. I will now call the first speaker on my list, and let me start with Nigeria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and other speakers here. Thank you very much, my colleagues. My name is Fatima Talba. I'm from Nigeria. I'm talking of a country with a population of more than 200 million, but poor representation of women in parliament. We have only 18 females in the parliament of Nigeria. You can see how women are terribly depressed on this issue. We cannot participate actively because of some points, some problems militating against women, particularly funding. Women need to be funded seriously. In this type of workshop, we need to actually look at how we go to fundraising or doing something to ensure that women are motivated more and funds are available for them to participate. I'm from a Sharia state, but this is my third time of coming to the National Assembly by the grace of God. So we need to just be pressing the correct button for us to get where we want to get. It may not be us, it may be our children or our great-grandchildren, but definitely one day we will reach there. So what I'm saying is that we are grossly underrepresented with a population of 200 million, yet only 8 females in the National Assembly. Is so terrible. But we are now trying to see how we are going to make, because we are at the verge of doing constitutional review. And that constitutional review is aimed at bringing about a good, positive, active action, that is a special reserved seat for women, where we will now go and put it in the computer, in the constitution, so that we will have additional 36 females in the assembly, National Assembly, as a House of Representatives, and we will also have 36 senators for the National Assembly too. So we'll have additional 72 females in the National Assembly. We are inputting it in our constitution. By next month. We'll complete the process of constitution review, and that's the only way forward as far as we are concerned. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next on the list is Ghana.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, for the opportunity. Challenging online stereotypes, violence, and disinformation against women in politics. You know, we battling with stereotypes and negative norms. And now here we are, you know, with the new form of a barrier, which is online violence. In my country, Act 1121, that was actually passed in 2024, and Article 17 of Ghana's Constitution gives the legal base, you know, that there is the need for practical action. What we've got to do is that we have to, it has to be mandatory that Meta, X, Twitter, TikTok should be mandated to take, you know, to take down doxing, deepfakes, threats within 2 hours, because stereotypes, disinformation spread faster in 6 hours. So the delay in pulling down causes the greatest damage. In my country, perpetrators hide behind free speech because in actually talking about online abuse, they talk about free speech. You are entitled for free speech. So they hide behind this free speech. So what I'm saying is that we've got to partner with platforms so that they protect women, especially women in politics. Because most women in my country, you know, they are qualified to be politicians. But because of this, they do not have, you know, that courage to be able to go in when they are demoralized. So we've got to partner with platforms so that they pull down hate speeches and all that, so that women will have the edge, women will be happy to go ahead to do politics. Thank you very much.
Okay. I just wanted to announce that the list of speakers is closed, and the next on the list is North Macedonia.
Poštovane kolege I koleginice.
Distinguished colleagues, digital technologies and social media have transformed political participation. They have opened new spaces for communication, visibility, and civic engagement, but they have also created new arenas for abuse, harassment and violence against women in politics. Recognizing this challenge, the Assembly of the Republic of North Macedonia has taken important steps to strengthen institutional responses. Our 2025-27 action plan foresees improvements to the Parliamentary Code of Ethics in order to prevent all forms of violence, including violence against women parliamentarians. In recent years, trainings and workshops have also been organized to strengthen capacities. Amendments to the criminal code introduced femicide and stalking as criminal offenses, reflecting our commitment to addressing violence against women in all its forms, including psychological and digital violence. However, legislation alone is not enough. In North Macedonia, the Women Parliamentarians Club and the Committee on Equal Opportunities for Women and Men regularly cooperate with civil society organizations, the media, and international partners to raise awareness and promote respectful public discourse. Dear colleagues, women belong in politics, online and offline. We must ensure that technology strengthens democracy instead of reproducing discrimination and exclusion. Together, through legislation, education, institutional accountability, and solidarity, we can create online spaces where women in politics can speak freely, lead confidently, and participate equally. Thank you.
Next on my list is Morocco.
Mesdames et messieurs, la violence, qu'elle soit physique, psychologique, verbale, numérique, à l'égard des femmes en politique, constitue une violation flagrante de leurs droits et à nos...
How can we build a stronger nation when we see that women do not have their own rights and do not take part in decision-making? In a digital world, they should be present and represented in a way to speak up without being afraid. They're building new tools of attack against women which are very misogynist, and in a parliament, in the civil institutions, we are dealing with harassments and blackmails that women are suffering against. It's very important to oblige technological giants to punish the misuse of tools that are available, and I'm thinking about platforms, documents. We have to make them share their experiences, and we should focus on raising awareness about the public on this violence, on this type of violence, ladies and gentlemen. Protection of women in politics and protection of women against violence is one of the priorities, and Morocco shares concerns it is not affecting only women. It is a prejudice that actually it affects only women, and it is actually negatively affecting all democratic institutions. Thank you very much for your attention.
And next is Malawi.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. Social media is indeed a platform that has made it easier for people to take part in political discussions and for leaders to communicate directly with citizens. However, these platforms also are being used to spread harm, stereotypes, abuse, and false information against women who want to become leaders or hold political office. For many women in politics, barriers are no longer limited to unequal access to resources, cultural discrimination, or underrepresentation. Increasingly, women must also confront online hostility that takes place, that seeks to undermine their credibility, silence their voices, and discourage their participation in public life. Online violence against women in politics is often rooted in the same gender stereotypes and social norms that exist offline. Women leaders are frequently judged not by being competent or policy positions, but by their appearance, age, marital status, or perceived adherence to traditional gender roles. Social media has amplified these stereotypes by allowing abusive content to spread quickly and widely. In Malawi, women politicians, parliamentary candidates, activists, and public officials have increasingly faced online harassment in the form of sexist comments, personal attacks, false allegations, and coordinated disinformation campaigns. During election periods, women candidates are often subjected to discussions about their family lives, marital status or appearance rather than their political agendas and qualifications. Such attacks reinforce the harmful belief that politics is primarily a male domain and that women must constantly justify their presence in leadership. The impact of this online abuse is significant. Many women leaders become reluctant to engage on social media despite its importance as a tool for political communication. Some reduce their online visibility while others withdraw from public discussions altogether. This not only affects individual women, but also weakens democratic participation by limiting diverse voices and perspectives. Malawi has made important progress in advancing women's political participation. Women have served as ministers, members of parliament like myself, judges, councillors, and even highest levels of leadership through through the former president, Dr. Joyce Banda. These achievements demonstrate that women can effectively lead and contribute to national development. Nevertheless, women remain underrepresented in elected offices, and online hostility continues to create additional barriers to their full participation. As parliaments and political institutions do have a critical role to play in addressing challenging online stereotypes, violence, and misinformation. As representatives of the people, we must ensure that digital spaces promote democratic values, human dignity, and participation. We must work together to ensure that technology becomes a tool for inclusion rather than exclusion, empowerment rather than intimidation, and a platform where women's voices are heard, respected, and valued.
Thank you. Thank you, Malawi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we move forward. Next on my list is Uruguay.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente, y gracias también al panel. Bueno, primero comprender que esta novedad relativa que es la violencia.
Hvala puno. This novelty called digital violence actually includes all forms of violence: psychological violence, sexual violence, emotional violence, family violence, and that's the violence that persists. It's not just an episode that will end. This type of violence, especially in case of women politicians, includes their families, their children, and turns their families and children into targets. In one research, we saw that 81% of women in parliament have faced some kind of digital violence, and social networks are the first platforms where this violence is conducted. On the other hand, when someone wants to criticize men, they criticize their political ideas. We have the law against digital violence, and we are still improving it. It's a good framework that should particularly tackle the issue of violence against women in politics. We have realized that it's important to take into consideration all the women who have suffered this kind of violence, and therefore we established a group of women. It's called Group of Women Survivors of Digital Violence. And we need to take into consideration that sanctioning and eliminating such contents from social networks in an efficient and effective manner is necessary in order to prevent all this, because this patriarchal algorithm is something that occurs on all the platforms. Moreover, the media take over this pattern of behavior that is present on social networks. On the other hand, states do not react adequately to this digital violence. We need to promote digital platforms where various layers of society will be involved, because these are not just individual incidents. The goal is to eliminate everything that affects democracy and participation of women in the parliament.
Today. One thing that I will point out is that there are two aspects of this. One is a long-term but in the meantime, as we go through legislation, we also have to focus on the short-term. You know, myself as a minority member of parliament and a woman in Canada get targeted a lot for being a Muslim, for being a woman, for being youngish, and it is across party lines. It also targets not just people from my party, but my other colleagues as well from all parties, and we have to be aware that when we are talking about gender-based violence online, and especially against women parliamentarians and women in politics in general, it is part of a bigger narrative. Because oftentimes, as Ms. Demeco said, that it is political, it is strategic, and it is organized in order to shut down voices of specific issues. For me, one of the issues that I raise is Islamophobia in my country, and I get targeted significantly with multiple death threats, with thousands and thousands of hate mail, etc. So when I talk about long-term, it is legislation. So for example, in Canada, we have introduced Bill C-16, which is being debated right now within our parliament, and it's part of that bill combats deep fakes and digital violence against women, and how we are going to be reforming how we deal with that issue. But one of the challenges that we face with the long-term legislation solutions is finding that political will. And oftentimes the big resistance, as was rightly pointed out, is the freedom of expression or shutting down political voices, etc., that is used against protecting women in politics. So while we are dealing with that political will question, I think in the short term there are strategies, and we can use artificial intelligence tools to protect women, to make sure that they're not leaving those spaces. So for example, in Canada, we have a parity bot. It's a Canadian-developed machine learning system that identifies abusive social media posts that are aimed at women candidates running in elections, and then automatically posts supportive content for them. So I think encouraging those technologies for the short term while also building that political will for the long term is very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next on the list is Germany.
Thank you so much. As my colleague Claudia Roth has already mentioned, the case of Corinne Fernandez drew a lot of attention to the legal gap that we had regarding sexualized deepfakes. And it's very interesting because we already knew that this legal gap existed. Women's civil rights organizations have drawn attention to this gap years before this case happened, but it still needed this public case to draw political attention to this case. And we used this attention to bring forward a legislative proposal to close this gap, to create a criminal law that puts severe punishment for those that produce and distribute sexualized deepfakes of other people. And we proposed this legislation that also saw or had in mind harsher penalties that apply when the perpetrator and the other person and the victim would be in a relationship of dependency. So you can think about a doctor and a patient, or about an employer and an employee. And we introduced this bill while being on the opposition bench, but we could still use the power from opposition, because at the same time, we could increase the pressure on our Minister of Justice to take legislative action, and she ultimately, it led her to also produce a bill that also had the same things in mind, to close this gap in the field of criminal law. So I just want to encourage you all, even if you're in opposition, to work on these topics, to examine what protection gaps do you still have in your legislation regarding digital violence, and also push this forward and use the power of civil society to bring forward these legislation? Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Bahrain.
أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، السيدات والسادة.
Govorim kao predstavnica Bahreina. Honorable speakers, dear guests, in our country, we are actively fighting, we as women are actively fighting for the participation in political life in our country, to be on an equal footing with men. The Kingdom of Bahrain is, we could say, a leader, a pioneer in the Arab world in this fight. Our kingdom has organized many actions in promoting the improvement of position of women. Our leader has also supported our endeavors and encouraged women to take the initiative in securing more equal position with their colleagues, men. The aim is to provide women with better position, equal position in our society. And the legislative framework and legislative provisions are part of our constitution. And in that context, we could say that we have a full institutional support from all instances, from all institutions in our fight to provide protection to women, care to women, that is a mother that has a family, that has children, but at the same time has the right to free speech and equal participation in political and public life of our country. Leaning on the achievements in the context of adopting necessary legislation, we women in Bahrain are proud of our achievements in recent years and what we have changed in our kingdom. As regards the application of the gender equality, implementation of gender equality, granting women the right to be nominated in leading positions, in political institutions, in economic institutions and organizations, in companies. We have done a lot in the field of emancipation of women and society as a whole by offering support to women, by offering women in Bahrain support to fight for her right. Thank you very much.
Japan.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Bonjour à toutes et toutes. En Belgique, une étude de l'Université libre de Bruxelles a mis en exergue plusieurs éléments. Parmi ceux-ci, eh bien, le sexisme s'exprime.
Thank you very much. In Belgium, we have managed to make the violence on social networks, to reduce it by half. But when we speak about women in politics in Belgium, since the last elections in 2024, we saw that there are fewer women who actually ran for the elections. They are facing intimidation and violence, and this is something that makes women withdraw their candidacies or marginalizes them, and they give up on everything. Therefore, there are increasing number of men in politics. Since 2014, the law on sexism has been applied, and it envisages sanctions. However, when it comes to women in politics, we need to tackle their issues in particular and in a separate legislative act. The Minister of Local Self-Government have actually advocated special protection for women employed in local governments, especially to protect them against sexism and such attacks. My colleague from Germany has spoken about this, and I fully agree with everything she has said.
Dobar dan, hello, I'm from Japan.
Dobar dan svima, ja sam iz Japina. Rodni jaz u Japanu je 106. Mi možemo da promenimo rodne pristrasnosti i online seksualno nasilje
personal information online. The kind of violence may not always appear of direct attack, but it works as the gradual forms of exclusion, of discouraging women from participating in politics. In Japan, reform to act on the promotion on gender equality, a political field, 2018 has boosted anti-harassment training and established of support services. Social constructed gender norm. As a parliamentarian, we can change it. Be sensitive. What we are facing, our stereotype on social norm. The members give up that if we give up the facing that fact, we never give up with the using data to the gathering evidence. What kind of social norms blocking out any choices of women? Based on evidence, make suggested diet, repeatedly share the ideal action, spread and establish better social norms. We parliamentarians, as restoration the body, have restored the power. After we passed a law, we mentioned for the 5 years, female the parliamentarian increased from 9% to 15.7%. Small number, but big steps on the Japanese society, especially female the financial independence that they are expanding for the woman possibility. We increased the budget on the woman, the financial independence. As a politician, our responsibility is the cultivating social norm online for the next generation. Thank you very much for both.
Thank you. Next on the list is Poland, followed by Vietnam.
Thank you very much for interesting discussion. Today, when we speak about democracy, we cannot ignore the digital battlefield where women in politics are increasingly attacked, silenced, and dehumanized. Online spaces which should strengthen democratic participation too often reproduce the oldest stereotypes in the newest form. Women leaders are not criticized merely for their policies. They are targeted because they are women. They face sexualized attack, coordinated disinformation campaigns, algorithmic discrimination, and constant pressure to conform to outdated expectations of what a woman should be: quiet, agreeable, invisible. It is not accidental, it's political. Across Europe and beyond, we are witnessing how authoritarian narratives thrive on misogyny. The same forces that attempt to weaken democratic institutions also attempt to push women out of public life. They weaponize disinformation, glorify domination over dialogue, and portray equality as a threat rather than a foundation of modern society. We need stronger protection mechanisms for women in politics, greater accountability from online platforms, and educational systems that teach critical thinking and media literacy from the early age. But above all, we need solidarity, because every time a woman is driven out of public debate through intimidation of humiliation, democracy itself becomes weaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on the list is Vietnam, followed by Romania.
Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates, digital transformation has created new opportunities for women to participate in public life and policy making. However, women in politics continue to face online violence, harassment, disinformation, and gender stereotypes that undermine their dignity and equal participation in political life. With the rapid development of digital technologies and artificial intelligence, these challenges are becoming increasingly sophisticated. This requires stronger cooperation among governments, parliaments, and technology companies to ensure a safe, transparent, and inclusive digital environment. Vietnam believes that women should have equal opportunities to participate in digital transformation and digital economy. Strengthening digital skills, access to technology, and online safety is essential to empowering women and expanding their participation in society. In recent years, Vietnam has strengthened its legal framework and implemented programs on gender equality, digital literacy, and the prevention of gender-based violence. We also support women and girls, particularly those in remote and ethnic minority communities, in accessing digital technologies. The Vietnamese delegation would like to propose 4 priorities. First, strengthen legal frameworks and international cooperation to combat online violence against women. Second, enhance the accountability of digital platforms in addressing harmful content and gender stereotypes. Third, promote digital skill and online safety for women and girls. Fourth, raise business awareness and foster a culture of respect and equality in digital space. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Next on the list is Romania, followed by Lesotho.
Mr. Chair, distinguished colleagues, it is a great pleasure to be with you today and to represent the Senate of Romania at this conference on an issue that affects democracy across the world. When we speak about online stereotypes, violence, and disinformation against women in politics, we are not discussing an abstract concept. We are discussing a reality that many of us experience. Like many women in public office, I have been criticized online not only for my political position, but also through comments and attacks that have little or nothing to do with my work. Too often, the focus shifts from policy and idea to personal criticism aimed at undermining credibility and discouraging participation. I have often noticed that it's easier for some people to attack the person than to challenge the argument. Disagreement is a normal part of democracy. Harassment is not. False information spreads rapidly online, while personal attacks and stereotypes are increasingly used to silence women's voices and discourage their participation in public life. As parliamentarians, we have a responsibility to ensure that political participation remains open, respectful, and safe for everyone. Women must be judged by their ideas, their competence, and their work, not by stereotypes, prejudice, or personal attack. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Portugal, followed by China.
Honorable colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I bring you warm and sisterly greetings from the Kingdom of Lesotho, and allow me to convey my profound gratitude to the Inter-Parliamentary Union and to our host, the National Assembly of Serbia, for bringing us together here in Belgrade to address challenges to women's political participation, online stereotypes, violence, and disinformation. There is a saying that death and life are in the power of words. In the digital age, that very power lies in the keyboard. Words are weaponized to target women in politics, online. Thus, social media has become a space where women in politics face targeted abuse that silences them and drives them out of political sphere. When women run for political office, the focus quickly shifts from their manifestos and qualifications to gendered attacks. I believe that no one should face abuse simply because of their gender. To address digital threats in Lesotho, Media Institute of Southern Africa, Lesotho chapter, MISA Lesotho, provides media training to tackle online hate speech and the misuse of artificial intelligence. These efforts are backed by Parliament through ongoing reforms to strengthen laws against cyber stalking and online intimidation. Protecting women online strengthens democracy. When women are free to participate in politics, parliaments gain diverse voices needed to address poverty and lead development. We cannot promote women's leadership in parliaments while leaving them exposed to online violations. Let us leave Belgrade committed to strengthening laws of our respective countries to protect women. Let us commit to building a digital space where every woman sees opportunities, not intimidation. Let us commit to holding digital platforms accountable, and let us protect the dignity of every woman who chooses to lead. I thank you for listening.
Thank you. That was Lesotho. And next on the list is Portugal, followed by China.
Distinguished Chair. Monsieur le Président, chers collègues, je félicite.
Distinguished Chairperson, dear colleague, I welcome this initiative and I want to thank you for the warm welcome. It is a pleasure to be here with you and to speak about our experience and to share experience and hear the experience of the others. I want to thank all the parliamentarians for sharing their experiences. You know, politics is not a friendly environment for women, both online and in reality. We need to eradicate this immediately. In every context, social, political, cultural, there are stereotypes that, persist. Our political careers means, of course, that there is no equal representation of men and women. Women do not feel supported by their heads, institutions, not even their women colleagues, because they are not respected and valued enough. The problem is that someone's reputation is at risk and women feel threatened, and everything we have done so far are not enough, are failure, because the victims are not just women in politics, but their families, their children. Being part of political life, it allows us to feel closer to our people and citizens. However, we expose our private life, family, to the public. They are exposed to manipulation, manipulation of their photos, public photos. Their photos are put in public when they don't want it. And, you know, they are shared within seconds across the social networks. And, dear colleagues, I'm glad that here we are talking about the pioneers in this fight. But there is a large path ahead of us, a lot to be done. We need to ensure that girls do not exclude themselves from politics in future. They need to know that they have equal opportunity to participate fully in political life. We need to raise awareness of everyone about all forms of discrimination and exclusion, and we'll need to invest more efforts because of the generations that are yet to come. We need to invest efforts in reaching equality and parity. We need to raise awareness of both men and women about these issues. We need to make this fight more efficient and make violence disappear. Thank you for all the inspiring speeches and for your attention.
France.
Distinguished Chairperson, dear colleagues, cyberspace governance is a global challenge. While the Internet allows free expression, it has also become a channel for spreading stereotypes that block women's equal participation in politics. We see this in 5 main ways, which I will summarize briefly. First, stereotyping. Women in power are often dismissed as emotional, or their work is labeled as showboating. Second, vulgar labeling. Third, false information. Rumors about their careers and motives are easily spread. Fourth, algorithmic bias. Some platforms' algorithms actually amplify negative stories about women. And fifth, outdated ideas. To stop this prejudice, China has taken action based on our national policy of gender equality. We have drawn a clear red line using the rule of law. Our laws clearly define the punishment for online attacks targeting women in politics. We also use special champions to clear up the internet and review algorithms to stop the spread of bias. At the same time, we promote positive stories. We encourage media to share real examples of outstanding female leaders, replacing negative narratives with facts. Colleagues, these problems exist globally. We need to work together. The NPC of China is ready to strengthen cooperation with legislative bodies worldwide. Let us share experiences and deepen collaboration to build a global online environment that is equal, respectful, and inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one is France, followed by Mauritania.
Monsieur le Président, Mesdames les parlementaires, en France, le nombre de victimes de harcèlement sexuel numérique a été multiplié par 6.
Distinguished Chairman, distinguished parliamentarians, In France, the number of victims of sexual harassment online has increased by 6 times between 2017 and 2024. We have some statistics which shows that women in politics are major targets. 96% of women, many women have been identified on porn websites due to the deep fake. The use of deep fake has increased by 140% in 2024. IPU describes this violence as a weapon against politicians that undermines the foundations of democracy, and the effects are well documented. 41% of women aged 1822 are self-censored online in order to avoid harassment. France has taken measures. The law from May 2024 criminalizes deepfakes, sexual deepfakes, and imposes the ban on social media that are used for cyber harassment. However, the law is still not is insignificantly implemented. According to the lawyers, the internet is still the zone where laws are not applied well enough, and we need to have a collective answer. We need to establish a criminal accountability for the platforms that are part of perpetrators. During the election time, we need to introduce 2 to 4 hours deadlines for reacting. And number 3, we need a stronger international cooperation in order to ensure outreach to hosting providers outside the EU. There are legal instruments such as Istanbul Convention, EU regulation on AI, and the European regulation DSA, but there is a political will to implement these frameworks. Protection of women online means protection of democracy. Thank you.
Mauritania, followed by United Kingdom.
تحية طيبة لكم أيها السادة المؤتمرون لاتحاد البرلمان الدولي كل باسمه ووسمه، وأشكر البرلمان الصربي على تنظيم هذا المؤتمر.
I want to thank the Parliament of Serbia for inviting us to participate in this conference. We, in my country, are witnessing very slow pace of measures towards empowering women to participate in the political life of our country. We are facing cyber attacks and digital violence on daily basis, and also we are facing various forms of sexism and sexist behavior against women. And in this regard, I believe other societies are not exceptions. Other countries across the world are not exception. But if we all together in solidarity and collectively and with full respect of our differences take decisive measures to fight for improvement of the position of women in society and in political life, then I'm certain that we can achieve very good and specific results. Over the past years, the number of women has increased not very much. The number of women who participate in the political life of Mauritania. We have also the increase of number of women in parliament, a small increase, and also the small increase of the number of women on various positions in public institutions. This encourages us, and it tells us that our fight was not in vain, and that it can result in better future for new generations of girls that are yet to come after us. And Today, we have one task, and that is to unite in this, I can say, cruel fight for improvement of position of women, for improvement of conditions in which an environment in which women can feel free and equal to her colleagues and partners, men, where she will not be exposed to various forms of stereotype, negative norms, stereotypes and negative forms. Thank you very much.
Followed by Indonesia.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this incredibly informative and useful discussion. Just under 10 years ago, I was appointed the Secretary of State, the Cabinet Minister in the UK government with responsibility for digital. I had previously been a minister in the Home Office with responsibility for preventing abuse, exploitation and crime, and so I was very, very aware of the dangers that the internet posed. In my capacity as Secretary of State, I introduced the UK government's Internet Safety Strategy. It's not easy to get something like that through government. Collective responsibility means you have to persuade a lot of people, but we managed to do it, and that Internet Safety Strategy led directly to the Online Safety Act. Now, there's a basic premise in the strategy and the Act that is, what is illegal offline is also illegal online. You cannot have different rules in the online space from the offline space. And for those that complain and say free speech is being affected, I would say if you are not prepared to say what you want to say online, offline, you really shouldn't be saying it because it's not acceptable. Women's safety is paramount, and if a woman cannot walk down the street safely, she should also be in a position where she can be online safely. I would also point delegates to a recent report that I published as the chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee, where we did a piece of work on new forms of radicalisation and extremism. It was disturbing to hear that every single piece of evidence we received said that misogyny was at the heart of the conspiracy theories that were fueling online hate. So I say that we stand together on this. We must put pressure on tech companies to make their platforms safe. We must legislate where necessary, and we must stand united in our fight to make sure that what is not acceptable offline is acceptable online. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Indonesia, followed by Iran.
Thank you, Chair. Indonesia acknowledged that while technology has widened democratic participation, at the same time, it also creates new spaces for gender-based political attacks. Indonesia will highlight 2 points. First, women in politics often face a different online reality than men. Debate can quickly shift from policy issues to gender, appearance, family roles, morality, or personal life. These stereotypes are amplified through harassment, disinformation, and online intimidation. This is not only a communication issue, it is a democratic issue. When online abuse silences women leaders or discourages women from entering public life, democracy loses voices, perspectives, and representation. Second, responding to this challenge requires shared responsibility. Governments, parliaments, digital platforms, media, civil society, and educational institutions all have a role to play. As digital platforms operate globally, we believe stronger international discussion on platform responsibility is increasingly important. Platforms should not simply allow their services to become channels for disinformation, harassment, and harmful content. Indonesia is therefore exploring stronger approaches to platform accountability, safer digital ecosystem, and greater transparency. To conclude, Indonesia thinks that protecting women in politics is not about limiting democratic debate, but it is about ensuring that participation remains safe, respectful, and equal. Thank you.
Thank you. So next on the list is Iran, followed by Mexico.
That's interesting now.
بسم الله الرحمن
distinguished chairs and esteemed colleagues. Today, as we speak of peace and breaking stereotypes, our hearts in the land of Iran beat for the innocent schoolgirls of Minab, girls who lost their lives not on a battlefield, but on the path to knowledge. Let the stark numbers speak for themselves. In that unjust attack by the US and the Zionist regime, out of 168 victims who were martyred, 112 were schoolgirls aged between 7 and 12. In a single moment, this tragedy left more than 50 mothers grieving, shattered dozens of families, and through the destruction of this educational center, jeopardized the educational opportunities for more than 400 other girls in the surrounding villages. It also inflicted deep psychological trauma whose consequences may remain unhealed for generations. This was only one example of the crimes committed during the recent aggression against the people and the girls of my country. In accordance with the principles of international law and the obligation to protect civilians, we as women parliamentarians have a responsibility to be the voice of these innocent girls. How can we speak of development when a girl's most fundamental right, the right to safety on her journey to education, is violated in such a manner? Today from Belgrade, and addressing all of you, free women and lawmakers from around the world, I call upon you to move beyond words. Let us, by condemning these inhumane attacks, commit ourselves to ensuring that our legal frameworks serve above all else to protect the lives and dreams of our daughters. Let us stand together and take meaningful steps towards building a safer and more just world.
On the list is Mexico, followed by Georgia.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, pues he escuchado con mucha atención a todas las compañeras y compañeros que se han manifestado en torno a la violencia digital y que creo que hay que dejar muy
carefully everyone who spoke about digital violence, and you have to be clear that countries that do not have laws in force that are protecting the victims of digital violence have to adopt the laws. We have the law Olympia in Mexico, which is something that is a very strong reference to us about the woman that was a victim of her husband or her partner, and we could adopt the law by listening what the victim has told us, and we have created a law based upon this. So we have to face the impunity in digital world. It must not exist in digital world. It is not a freedom of speech. It is a fake debate. It is not a freedom of speech. It is a lie, and it is a violence. It is a clearly violence, and it have to be punished. We have to be aware of this criminal act. It should not be prevented from being punished, and we should deepen the distribution of the materials without the approval of the victim. We have to provide for reparation of the damage that has been caused to the victim. We have to not only punish the aggressor, but also to provide that he should be punished, but he should be openly say his excuses to the victim. Violence is affecting all of us and affecting the victims in all spheres of their lives, and especially if the materials are not removed from the internet. It's also important. The material happens very quickly, but reparation also has to happen fast. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, ladies and gentlemen. In today's digital age, women in politics face challenges that go far beyond traditional stereotypes. Online harassment, disinformation, hate speech, and targeted attacks have become powerful tools used to discourage women from participating in public and political life. These challenges are not only attacks on individual women, they are attacks on democracy itself. Another important challenge is that violence and disinformation often discourage women from entering politics or remaining active in public life. Many women face personal attacks, harassment, and coordinated campaigns aimed not at their ideas or policies, but at their gender. Therefore, addressing online abuse is essential not only for protecting women, but also for strengthening democratic institutions and ensuring inclusive political participation. We must continue working together to create a safe digital environment where women can express their views freely, participate in politics without fear, and contribute fully to the development of our society. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next on the list is Tanzania.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, distinguished members. I thank God and honored to be among the part of this discussion. As a victim for this topic, I just want to share my experience. There in Tanzania, our constituents support and guarantee the participation of women in the politics, but the society will still have some barriers for women in participation in politics. We have some members of parliament, women, we have 40%, and we have some leaders who inspired young girls like our former speaker, Dr. Tulia, who is our IPU president. We appreciate her for what she did to our country, but we have also our excellent President Samia Suluhu, who do a lot of things and has inspired a lot of women. But the problems of our societies on discrimination, disinformation and violence to women, it's still high. Most of the society, they don't believe that a woman can be a leader. Even me, I'm a victim. I was a young parliament to 15 up to 20. I was a special seat. But I faced some sexual harassment from my leader in my part, because they say, if you want to reach there, you're supposed to do this. We have to have sex. So that is harassment women we face in these political parties. But 2025, I just go to concess to my constituents. I faced a lot of violence, a lot of norms, a lot of bullying. They give us a lot of shit names like prostitute because you're a woman. But it's not because they believe you can't. They know we can as a woman, but they don't want to believe us because we are women. So what I want to encourage the women all over the world, we have to unite as a woman. And they have one slogan, they say, the enemy of a woman is a woman. We have to disagree that slogan. A woman must be a friend of a woman, because some negative names comes from a woman. Women participate with, unite with their men to discriminate a woman. So we have to unite and be strong. We can do better as a woman in this world. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lastly, Mr. Chair, 1 minute. I would like to welcome in Arusha, October. We are waiting for you.
I'm now pleased to show a video by Speaker Milton Dick from Australia, who wanted to contribute to this important discussion.
Hello from the Pacific and from the Parliament of Australia. My name is Milton Dick and I'm the Speaker of the House of Representatives. I'd like to thank the President of the National Assembly of the Republic of Serbia, Ms. Ana Brnabić, for her outstanding leadership in helping organise this important gathering. And of course, to my dear friend, Senator Cynthia Lopez Castro, an amazing woman leading the IPU Women's Bureau, and a true champion for gender equality. Here in Australia, our Parliament is 49% women, and our Cabinet is 52.2% women. We have a proud record of allowing women to run and stand for office, the first place in the world. And I know our Parliament contains strong women from Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Egypt and Laos, and a big diverse Parliament made up of a record number of First Nations people. We are doing everything we can to protect women and girls through the new social media laws, the world first, where we've seen 4.7 million accounts activated. And finally, a big thank you and shout out to my friend Ms. Amber Phillip, the new Secretary-General-elect, the first woman to hold this important role in 137 years. Look forward to working alongside all of you in the years ahead, and congratulations on a wonderful gathering.
Thank you, Milton. And next on the list, and the last, is Turkpa. Not in the room.
Estimate Gates, I am pleased to represent the Parliamentary Assembly of Turkic States, Turkpa, where special importance is attached to advancing women's participation in parliamentary diplomacy and decision-making processes. We firmly believe that breaking stereotypes is the first step to advancing parity and opening the doors of political life to women. Stereotypes heavily affect how women leaders are perceived, often subjecting them to harsher criticism and doubts about their competence. These barriers weaken democratic life by narrowing the pool of talent available to public institutions. The experiences of Turkpa member states demonstrate a shared determination to overcome these challenges. In Azerbaijan, consistent state policies ensure women's active contribution across legislative and executive bodies. In Kazakhstan, the focus is on public awareness campaigns to prevent discrimination, while Kyrgyzstan actively implement targeted leadership programs to support women's economic independence. As for Turkey, we address these barriers through a comprehensive and multi-layered approach. Our policy framework aims to strengthen women's participation in economic, social and political life, while also promoting a fairer distribution of responsibilities and opportunities between women and men. In our view, women can participate without facing prejudice, inclusion, or disproportionate burdens. Distinguished colleagues, working together against negative norms means creating a social environment in which women's participation is not questioned but expected, not tolerated but valued, not symbolic but genuinely influential. As parliamentarians, we carry the unique responsibility to lead this cultural transformation by example. Concluding my remarks, I wish this global conference every success and warmly invite you to cooperate closely with the Turkpa Women Parliamentaries Group in our upcoming activities. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, and thank you all for your active participation. This session has shown that the online space is not an imaginary space. It is a real political space where violence, abuse, and disinformation can have real consequences for women in politics. It has also shown that all stereotypes often appear in new forms online. We have heard that responses are needed at many levels. Parliaments can act, governments can act, platforms can act. Civil society can act, international partners can also support this work. Dear colleagues, the message from this session is clear. Protecting women's voices online is part of protecting democracy. I thank our keynote speaker, our panelists, and all participants for their valuable contributions. Thank you, and we will now break for coffee.
Diyorlar, bir dakika diyor. Adamla diyorlar.